Hey, it's me, the amazing atheist. Cleaner shaven, but dirtier minded. You know, I keep all my evil in this, double chin. That's why I usually try to hide it with beards. But you know what? I said, fuck it. Let's let it all hang out. Let everyone know what an evil fuck I am. And that's fine. I've come to terms with it. I'm comfortable with who I am now. I feel like renewed or something. Renewed. Nude. Mostly just nude. Yeah, beyond this shirt, I'm not wearing anything. This camera pans down, you're gonna see... they're big. So, what's everyone talking about? Everyone's talking about CISPA. CISPA! Everyone's whispering it in hushed tones of reluctant reverence, you know? CISPA. What are we gonna do about CISPA? CISPA! It sounds like a Klingon mating ritual, doesn't it? We will now begin the CISPA! Star Trek. Like, CISPA just passed the House a couple days ago and people are acting like it's the worst thing to ever happen. What CISPA does is basically, CISPA makes it to where if the government looks at you and they say, well, that's one suspicious looking motherfucker, they can just call up like Google or some shit, like, hey Google, you know that kid Joe Simonson? Creepy looking little fuck? Yeah. Well, we're suspicious. We think you might be up to something. Why don't you send us all the information you have on him? And under CISPA, Google says, okay. These are phones. The government won't need a warrant. They won't need a subpoena. All they need to do is call. They call Google or Facebook or Microsoft or whatever, and they say, hey, give us all the information you have on so-and-so, and the company instantly complies under CISPA. You know, you remember privacy? That thing you used to have? Well... it's gone. Just gone. Bye-bye. We all knew it was leaving sometime. It's gonna go. Oh, well, okay, President Obama says that he's gonna veto CISPA. Yeah. Right. Just like he said he was gonna veto the National Defense Authorization Act of 2012, which gives the U.S. government the ability to detain indefinitely citizens of the United States of America without trial or even charge. Despite the misinformation campaign that says that it doesn't do that, yes, it fucking does. So I wouldn't count on a President Obama's veto. I mean, if he says he's gonna veto it, then there's a good chance he will, but it's not a fucking certainty by any means. Most likely, they're just gonna water down the bill a little bit, and then President Obama's gonna be like, well, the new bill is so much better, even though it's not, and then he's gonna be like, I can sign this. But you know, Paul Zigo, who is a YouTuber that I follow here on YouTube, and he's also a blogger that sometimes blogs on Tumblr, and I read a Tumblr blog he did where he was basically saying, like, you know, why don't these companies like Google and Facebook and Microsoft who opposed SOPA and PIPA stand up and oppose CISPA too? And he said, I'll tell you why. It's because it's not in their best interest. This doesn't affect them, it only affects individuals. So they're not standing up for this time. In fact, they're supporting this outright because it actually makes their lives easier. They don't have to jump through any hoops now whenever the government says, hey, give us some information. They can just say, all right, here you go. It'll be a lot easier to be one of these companies if CISPA passes. So, of course they're not going to stand up for us. And that's what I was thinking when I read Paul's post. I was thinking, well, why would they fight for us? Why is it in their best interest to fight for us? Why is it even their responsibility to fight for us? Like, he's saying, well, why don't they stand up for us? They're not our friends. Well, no shit, they're not your fucking friends. They're corporations. They want to make money. They don't give a fuck about you. The only thing they give a fuck about you is how much money they can make off you. And that's perfectly fine. That's all they're supposed to do. They're not fucking moral crusaders for the greater good. They're here to provide goods and services for your fucking money. And most of these companies perform quite admirably in that regard. But the more interesting thing to me is the fact that CISPA pretty much negatively affects everyone. As in everyone individually. Like, ask anybody in the entire country, like, do you want the government looking through your fucking shit? You want them looking through your email? You want them looking through your Facebook? You want them looking through everything you do online? Most people are going to say, no, that doesn't sound very good at all. Including the people who work at Facebook or Google, or who work in the government itself. Most of them are going to say, no, this sounds like a terrible fucking idea. And that's the interesting thing to me. The interesting thing is that when you have a superorganism, and for those of you who don't know what a superorganism is basically a collective of organisms that behaves in its own interest rather than the interest of any of its individual components. And the interesting thing to me about superorganisms is that you would think the way they work is that if you have a bunch of people who are all part of a collective, then if 90% of the people in the collective say, we like option A, then option A would be what the superorganism does. But that's not how they work. A superorganism, it does factor in the will of its individual components, but that's not its primary concern. Its primary concern is the furtherance of its own power, and we see that throughout history. That's why you end up with things like communism, where everyone is fucking miserable. Everyone hates the system, and yet the system doesn't change. At least it doesn't change quickly. Why not? Because they're all a part of the system. They're all a part of the superorganism. And the superorganism has its own will. And its will is to continue to exist, to continue to be powerful, to get more and more powerful. It's like Noam Chomsky observed. In the 60s and 70s, we had COINTELPRO, which was a government program that was designed to fuck people out of their rights. That's all it was made to do. If you were someone who was a dissenter or perceived as a dissenter, COINTELPRO would do anything in its power to fuck with you. And pretty much anything at all was in its power. The government outright broke its own laws to silence dissent. Those people's rights didn't mean anything. Okay? And was it a big news story? Never. Did the media care? Never. Did the general population care? Never. But what about Watergate? You have Watergate, where it's basically just one superorganism, the Republican Party, transgressing against another superorganism, the Democratic Party. So why is it that the media didn't care about COINTELPRO, but they did care about Watergate? It's because COINTELPRO only affected individuals. Watergate affected superorganisms. It affected the superorganisms of the Democrat Party and the Republican Party, who together form the superorganism of the United States government. And the media, which is also a superorganism, needs the US government because it has sources within the government. It covers what the government does. You know, it's like in the movie Nixon by Oliver Stone. Nixon goes out and he fucking talks to this little hippie chick. And this hippie chick is basically accosting him about the war in Vietnam. And Nixon's like, you know, I hate the war too. The war fucking sucks. Don't you understand? I don't like this war any more than you do. And the hippie chick says, well then why don't you stop it? And Nixon kind of fumbles and mumbles and he doesn't really know what to say. And finally, an epiphany dawns on the little hippie girl and she says, wait a minute. You can't stop it, can you? It's not even you. It's the machine. And Nixon just like, whoa, it blows his fucking mind. He's shocked. He can barely fucking breathe. He's so shocked. Because he realized how insignificant he was. President of the United States? Bullshit. We got a new president of the United States every 4 or 8 years. You are a motherfucking cog in the machine. That's all we all are. That's all these motherfuckers in the fucking House of Representatives or the Senate or the White House are. They're just a bunch of fucking cogs. And some of the cogs turn to the left and some of the cogs turn to the right. But they all interlock. And they all serve the fucking machine. And the machine's purpose is to be the machine. To keep on going. To propagate itself. To expand its own fucking power. That's all the fuck it does. So when you look at these politicians up in Washington and you say to yourself, well, they're all a bunch of liars. And they don't fucking do what they say they're gonna do. Has it ever occurred to you that maybe they can't? Maybe they can't. Maybe they can't fucking do anything because they're just cogs in the machine. Maybe they're really not all that much more powerful than you are to affect the course of things. The machine is gonna do what the fuck it wants to do. You know, people say, oh, the Republicans and the Democrats, they're the same. They're the same thing. No, they're not the same thing, but they serve the same master, the superorganism of the machine. And the machine is this entire country. And what does this country really want to do? It just wants to assert its own power. And it doesn't care what you think or what I think. It doesn't care if 70% of the people say this, or 90% of the people say that, or 99% of the people fucking are angry at the top 1% because the wealth is so concentrated. It doesn't care about any of that. These stupid Alex Jones type motherfuckers think that this whole thing is controlled by a bunch of multi-billionaires sitting at a table somewhere, smoking cigars and thinking of ways to fuck over the common man. But that's not what it is at all. It's all of us. It's every single fucking person. Right down to the lowliest fucking, janitor mopping up fucking puke in your high school, to the fucking president of the United States, to the fucking top Fortune 500 companies. They're all just cogs in the goddamn machine. And yeah, sure, there are people who have power, and there are people who have influence, and maybe they can, change the course of the machine by a centimeter here and a centimeter there. But at the end of the day, the machine does what the fuck it wants to do, and you're just a component. And you know what? Just because you're a component doesn't mean you have any say in the functionality of the machine that you're a component of.
Man, I don't give a fuck if CISPA passes, man. Because I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take 500 freaky-ass, disgusting, naked pictures of myself every single goddamn day. I'm going to do some freaky-ass shit, and I'm going to put that shit all over the internet. I'm going to fucking send them to myself. I'm going to send them to my friends. I'm going to send them to my family members. I'm going to be doing freaky ass shit all day, every day, and posting that shit up all over the internet. So the agent they hire to go through my shit, he ain't going to have a good time. That banana video, that wasn't nothing. I'm working my way up to watermelon, motherfuckers. So you going to have a good time spying on my ass. I'm going to make my personal fucking goal in life is the agent they fucking put on me. I'm going to make him puke 10 times a goddamn day. That's what I'm going to do. That's how I'm fighting CISPA. Fuck those motherfuckers. It's like Good Will Hunting, man. Fucking Will Hunting's father puts the fucking belt and the wrench on the table and says, which one you want me to beat you with? And Will says, I'll take the motherfucking wrench. You know why? Because fuck him. That's why. And that's my goddamn logic. Fuck them. That's why.